Welcome to the Village Green. And this is a space for interesting conversations that could happen in archaeology, in next culture. And it is not a workshop, it is not a training. It is as if we were meeting somewhere online or in a park and having these interesting conversations. And the conversation that we are going to have today is about the gray zone, in and out the gray zone. And this is what is the gray zone? You might ask yourself.
We have asked that.
Great. And it's really this term that we just started using to name the space that happens in relating. And it doesn't need to be, a romantic relating. It could also be with a child or with a friend. So with someone who you have been spending, a certain amount of time, and you might have created unconsciously this gray zone in between you, where certain dynamics happens, certain gremlin dynamics happens, certain patterns. And these gremlin dynamics, they basically feed and match each other.
It is a little bit what's coming to me, these locks that you put numbers, and you usually have 4 numbers, and there's like a match, and then the lock opens. And what comes to me is relationships have these combinations, and then you dial certain numbers from each side, and all kinds of results happen. Beautiful, intimate spaces can happen from this combination, and also gray zones can happen. So what I want to clarify is like this: the gray zone that we're referring to is not when one person is hooked, for example, or in the swamp and the other one isn't. It's when there's like a specific combination in this lock between the two of you that's you get hypnotized. You both hypnotized in a space that is familiar. And every gray zone has a specific flavor.
That familiar flavor.
Yeah.
Do you have the experience having been in the gray zone?
Oh, I think we were just in the gray zone just before 5 minutes ago. Yeah.
And how would you describe your gray zone? Like more from the experiential reality, like what is the texture or the temperature, or how would you describe it?
Gray is a good way to describe it because it's without color. And it's sort of blah. That's what I think of gray. I mean, I think gray can be quite a good, but it's like, oh, here's the same thing happening, and it's not fun. No. How would you describe it?
It's definitely grey. I'm spellbound. I'm coming to it, but can you see that? Oh, can you see? No, you can't.
But there's beautiful colours out
there. There's the most gorgeous colours.
And it's not grey.
From the sunset.
Yeah, the most gorgeous colours. And yes, it's so okay. Yes, it's grey. How else can I describe it? It's a like, oh fuck, this isn't, you said texture, but it's like, oh fuck, I know this so well. It's a kind of a here we go again. A very familiar groove.
Yeah, those words came to me also. Here we go again.
Yeah.
And the thing that you said about, yeah, the combination, like, so this happened and then that happened and then that happened and that happened and there we are.
Yeah.
This particular recipe to create that gray zone. I recognize that.
Mm.
But when you're in it, it's quite hard to get out of it.
Yes.
And this is the thing, is like, then you're you know, that when there's these two parts that are in the gray zone and they're in this loop, right, in this hypnosis, and they are like, and then they are more committed to, hello Gabriela,
Hello, Gabrielle.
more committed to find those evidences to keep feeding the story. So you said that you were in this gray zone about 5 minutes ago. So how does it look like in terms, like, if you were to be, you know, more specific, how would it look like, the gray zone that you recognize, it's familiar to you both, Patricia and Renee? So what would one of you say, and what would the other one say when you are in the gray zone?
I would say, to Renee, could you just video me for a minute? Because I want her to, we've got 5 minutes or something, or 10 minutes. And she would go,
It's time to get ready to have something to eat before the village green. And behind it, there's coming some, not quite resentment, but heading in that direction. Yes. Like, how come you're not thinking about, if we're going to eat, how come you're thinking about videoing something and you're not thinking about preparing for some food, which we decided we were going to have? And so then what happens next?
So Renee, what is the story that happens in you that you're trying to convince yourself that you go into the hypnosis part?
Yeah, so the story was an old story of, here we go, I'm 100% responsible for preparing the dinner. And you don't have to think about it. You can think about other things. And I quite like to think about other things too, but I can't, because if we're going to eat, then someone has to do it. And aren't you lucky to be able to just do what you're doing and not to even have to think about preparing dinner? It's getting into the victim sort of area, actually.
And what about you, Patricia? What happens in you then?
My story would be, I've already, I checked in about food. I thought we had that sorted, but my story is, how come food has to be so important all the time? We've just had a lunch thing with Anna and it's taken, and that's been most of the day. How come food is, now we're on to the next thing? Why can't it wait? Well, I guess it's, not making
Who does Renee become in that moment?
Hey, say again, Jacopo.
Who does Renee become?
Renee becomes, she's not a parent, but it's I don't want to think about food right now. Who does she become? Well, maybe she is a parent. She's telling me what to do. She's coming in with an agenda, and I don't want to meet this agenda right now.
It seems like that somehow she's like limiting your movement or your freedom to do what you want to do.
Yeah.
And do you know this specific dynamic, like in other situations, not just about food and taking the video?
Yeah, It happens on a regular basis
Mm.
with things. When there's no like,
when there's assumptions, when there hasn't been enough communication.
yeah, when there's assumptions, and then, and when there hasn't been enough clear communication about who's holding space for what.
Yeah, and this is a piece that Jacopo and I also, and Gabriella in some exploration, like found this piece about the expectations, that the assumptions lead to expectations. And when there's an expectation, for example, if I ask Jacopo and I notice there's something going on and I ask, what's going on? And Jacopo goes, nothing, I'm fine. And this is a place where I get hooked. And yeah, there's like an expectation that he would share what's going on, or he will, if he's not aware, he will research or question if there is something going on. So this place of in relating, there's so many places I'm finding, like also that there's like the big expectations, but then there are like the more subtle expectations.
Yeah.
And as you were saying, like this topic happens all the time, and I'm also finding, like Jacopo and I also have a recurring topic, which is for me is all the topics are like feeding to the story that I am on my own. I need to do everything on my own, and a lot in the responsible victim, which is also what in the lines of what you, Renee, were sharing. Being the responsible victim who needs to take care of everything, and I'm on my own with it all. And you want to share yours?
Yeah, and then the matching piece from my side is, well, if you don't want me, then I won't be here. And life is better on my own. And basically these two stories, then they keep feeding each other.
Mm.
And then both parts go into this vortex, this hypnosis, where it's, yeah, where basically both parts are snapped into the dynamic.
And what you were saying before, like it's not fun. A part of it, for a part of us, is really fun. Like the gremlin is having fun.
Yeah.
Because what I find is like the gremlin is so creative, and it can use anything, food, the shower, the whatever, any situation, that if the gremlin is hungry and wants to go to that same story of I am on my own, I need to take care. My gremlin can use any situation to turn it into it. The situation becomes almost irrelevant.
Yeah. Yeah. And my part of that story, where I would go, and I did go, is okay, I'm taking care of my own breakfast and my and lunch and everything, right? Okay. How about I take care, we just split. You take care of all of your food, I take my food. That's where I went to.
It sounds like, well, I don't need you. You don't need to take care of me. I don't need you.
Yeah, this seems like the best solution. Just cut it. Yeah. And Renee said that won't work.
Yeah.
Gabriella, what is from your side about the gray zone?
I'm arriving. I was in a gremlin ecstasy research. And my voice is coming back a little bit to the back of the room. So it's funny, just notice that. I have something in life about the gray zone that I noticed today after the gremlin research, is that there is a certain joy of keeping it recreating the gray zone. And the gray zone is that match that you're saying, Jacopo, when my survival strategy, it's kissing my partner, or can be also a friend or someone else, but I'm researching more with my partner right now, the survival strategy. And when these two survival strategy kiss each other, there is like a full playground to have a party for my grandmother. And what I can tell from my side right now, because I'm not in person physically with my partner, is that I notice when we are calling, there is this dynamic that happens that I want to share what's happening to me and bring forward what I want to share. And then I'm waiting for him to ask questions to me, like, what's going on in your life? What you're celebrating? Or I expect him to ask me certain kind of questions that are not boring questions of what's up or what are you feeling, like these PM questions. Like I'm expecting him to bring news or adventure into the call. And then as soon that he's sharing as we used to talk, or we are going the normality, I start to wait and to be apathic. And this is how I notice in the gray zone happens in the calls. I wait to some new questions and exciting questions come. This doesn't come. I feel disappointed. This expectation gets broken, and then I start being resentful and revenge on him by being waiting and like killing the space with my silence and my eyes, and like I will not interact until there's something good enough to talk about. And so this is the gray zone that I'm researching on right now. And my interest that has been how to get out of the gray zone, like how to enter the call with another posture or attitude, that I'm not setting up the playground to grumbling feeding.
It seems like all of us know how to get in the gray zone. And you mentioned before how, there is this sentence of "here we go again," and you can really picture this sentence as you are in some way just taking your clothes off and putting on the costume of the gray zone. That's what you're doing when you say "here we go again," and you're both doing that. You're just changing dressing, and you start behaving with a certain identity. In this case with me and Rita, this will, from my side, it would be like life is better on my own, and disappear, and this identity that then has certain behavior, that certain patterns, and then Rita will have her own costume and behaviors and patterns, and then these two parts are more committed to be disconnected than to be in connection, so they will not want to get out of it. It's, as Rita said, it's so juicy for the gremlin to be in this space. So how to get out of it, and what? So I actually opened a question.
Yeah, I would want to hear.
What have you found in your research that works for you to change a costume and get out of it?
Because one possibility is to keep going, as I was sharing, like this lock that enters the code, enters, and then it's almost like the door opens to this gremlin playground where you both know, you put your costumes and here you go into this room and you have gremlin fun. And one possibility of getting out of it, and it's not actively getting out of it, is going on until you're gremlin fed enough. And sometimes it's some hours, and for some other people it's days or even weeks. And then it's like you back. You had enough of a feed, and then you back and ready to be in connection. And what we researching is how to get out of it sooner.
Mm.
and not wait for the whole for the gremlin to be tired of the playground and go to sleep.
Or ideally not to even get in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This
But
is
we are
another
not-
best skill.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe getting out of it first. We could go where that's it. Yeah.
So if
So-
you get out of it, you can get out quicker and quicker.
So we
How
had
did you how did you get out, Renee and Patricia? Because you're sharing that right before the call you were in.
Yeah.
How did
Yeah.
you get out of this specific situation?
Yeah, we listened a bit. We kind of listened to each other, and I said, so
You gave me a couple of
completion loops. I'm hearing that you want me to be more of the space, hold the space for, not that I'm doing it at all, but that I'm taking responsibility with what we eat at dinner.
You managed to put your own thing aside for a minute.
Yeah.
And listen to me.
Yeah. And you said,
And I did the same. I
yes,
think.
yes.
That really helped.
Yes, so we listened to each other and we gave each other completion loops, and we sort of got to a place where, okay, I can do that.
But then Gremlin was still sitting there waiting to pounce because it fed on the feeling like you both said that there was this sort of this disappointment, and like I had a disappointment. Oh, Trish wants to do this, and she hasn't even thought about dinner. So I had this disappointment, and she said to me, "Oh, what's wrong?" She could feel it, just like you said, Rita. What's wrong? And it's the feeling of disappointment that I think the gremlin jumped on.
Mm.
And you were disappointed from your side too.
Yeah. Yep.
I
Yeah.
don't know
So
what to
I hear that it means that you both were creating expectations about each other.
Yes.
do.
Yeah.
And what worked was listening to each other and giving completion loops in negotiating something.
Yes.
And it
Yeah,
sounds like the gremlin still wanted to, wasn't fully satisfied.
No, the gremlin was still feeding on the feeling. The feeling behind it was still there.
Like
Yeah.
when we after we talked and
Yeah.
and on eating, when we were eating.
No, just when we were talking.
Okay.
Because we were giving each other completion loops, but the feeling was just there in the background, and it wasn't. Yeah, I don't know how we deal with the feeling, the disappointment behind I don't know, the disappointment behind the expectation not being met.
So what was the feeling? You were still angry?
No, I was disappointed.
Okay.
And disappointment is also like a way of unconscious anger, and it's the piece that comes just before a resentment. And it is when you have an expectation and your expectation is not met, then you get disappointed. And if you get disappointed maybe again and again, then you create a resentment, which is somehow like a longer lasting disappointment. And the way to go through it, Renee, would be to have a held space, also to explore the expectation and the fear that you have behind the expectation. So it would be a held space. And I'm aware, like, not in every moment that you're interacting with Patricia, you can go and have straight away a held space to shift. This would make relationship very complicated. If every time I get hooked with Jacopo, I need to call someone to have a held space and then we can connect. Luckily, Gabrielle is living with us.
Never get my video done.
You won't get your video done. And I would say a possibility is to give your gremlin another job. Because your gremlin is hungry and it wants to do something, and give it something that's juicy enough that instead of feeding on the disappointment, give it another bone to chew on.
Like
What possibilities would you have? that would serve connection. So your gremlin can have like a bone to chew on, or like a job that can serve connection or intimacy.
I'm not sure. Do you have any possibilities?
Yes, like the whole realm of going non-linear is an area where gremlin can be very fed, and it can be used for intimacy. Do you want to say something? Jacopo is passionate about this piece.
So I have a possibility. So Renee, every time you go into the same loop, you know you're wearing the gray zone costume. You're there, you're just spending time putting the gray zone costume on. You just suddenly drop the costume and you just raise your hand, your arms, your all arms, and you start, it's not like, Patricia,
Patricia,
how come you're not thinking about dinner? And you make it so dramatic. You make it like you're on some sort of a stage of some, I don't know,
Opera.
flamenco dancer.
flamenco dancer, you said?
Yeah, like Patricia, like a flamenco
Yeah.
dancer.
Yeah, and put a
I
role.
like it.
How come?
How
We're
come?
not thinking about dinner.
Yeah.
So non-linearity is something that works. And
Hmm.
when you are hypnotized and you are in this well, you're asleep and you are in a certain state where you have a certain story that is running. For example, life would be better on my own. And then my focus is in finding evidences to support the story, to feed the story. And we are very skillful at finding evidences. We can find evidences for any story. And then my whole body, my whole physiology will behave in a certain way. Maybe I am more close to Rita, or in general, I am more like looking down. So these are all patterns that will happen in the physiology. So one way of breaking this cycle, this hypnosis that you might go into, is to break one of these three. It's like if you see it as a triangle, where on one side you have the focus, on one side you have the meaning, the story, and on the other side you have the physiology, would be to break one of these sides of the triangle. And when I say like you could raise your hand, so this would be a way for you to break the physiology of your body, so that you unsnap yourself from the hypnosis you're into.
And this is because there's certain body postures or certain behaviors that it's impossible for me to stay hooked. For example, singing.
Hmm.
And I use this sometimes. I am hooked and I start singing, and I am not able to stay hooked if I keep singing.
Yeah.
We tried that last night.
Yesterday,
It worked.
Yeah. And
It's
yeah, what you're saying is
Right.
it's really true, because when I'm for that first key that I put in, the disappointment, oh, here I am, again, I'm having to, and my body sort of goes down, and Trish can feel the feeling coming from me. And when you say, put your hands up and go, Patricia, it's like it brings color and life into me.
And empowers you.
Yeah, and brings the color back.
Yeah.
It's like I can imagine the red and black of the flamenco dancer, like, oh, like life, brings life back into the gray zone.
Yeah. And as Jacopo was saying, like this like each state is connected to certain emotions, stories, evidence that you're seeking in the physiology. And to shift, like I was saying before, the emotions, probably you need to go into a healing process or something like that, and going to feelings work. So the most efficient in the space is to shift the physiology.
Yeah. Yes, I was thinking that it's the easiest one to shift.
to make them
and
immediate.
it's like they are interconnected. So when you
Hmm.
shift one, the other ones cannot stay.
Mhm. Yeah.
What physiology would you shift, Gabriella, in your phone call?
I tried today of calling standing up. I had a call today with him and I was standing. Because usually when you're calling, I'm like laying down and I'm like in this lazy position before sleeping. And it not worked so well. I think we need to be something more extravagant. Like I would need a possibility. Jacopo, it seems that you already have one in the point of your tongue.
Well, I'm gonna give you a possibility that someone gave me once, and this someone was called Gabriela Fagundes. And she told me that she gave me this possibility of going into the bathroom and start jumping with the and it's a possibility that I have not tried yet, but I'm very excited and looking
I
forward
gave
to
it
try
to
it.
you and I gave to Rita. You both have this piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had similar come to my mind, like with a skipping rope, and it's skipping, and I don't know how you would hold your phone. You'd have to set your phone up so that it was still, and every time it came to you, this expectation that he would come up with something instead of going down that track, just skipping instead for a bit.
Mm. Yeah, I will try the next call this again. I've been experimenting. We did that for 2 weeks when we were together in physically, of we both going to the bathroom jump together. But somehow I have in mind that would be boring in the cell phone, like holding this. Actually, it would be weird holding the cell phone and jumping. But it's something, yes, it's I think just a way of my gremlin snap me into keep feeding and that low drama I'm going on. And something else that I experiment today was to ask directly. So it's a way for me to get out of the gray zone is a lot about conscious anger and how to source conscious anger to create that what I want. So and to ask. So for example, with you, Renee, I would imagine something of asking Patricia like directly, will you cook dinner for us? And not assume that she will always do that because it's the habit, or I don't know, because you did something before and then she would do back to you because you did it. I don't know what if there was any agreement, but it seems that you assume based on the habits. And the result today was that I arrived asking a question about tarot to Leonard, and then the conversation started to unfold itself, and this initiative like make it not possible to go even in the gray zone, because it created the another space, like the space that I wanted to create. So this was something that I tried out today that worked. And another thing that worked also some days ago was to admit my grumbling. So as my grumbling started to go into this mental judgment thing, and instead withdrawing, I said, I need you to pause. I'm not listening to you, really. You're talking, but I'm not listening to you. And then I said, there's something going on in me. I want to share. Do you want to listen? It's my grumbling. I want to give the microphone to my grumbling for 1 minute and see what's happening. And then I admit what my grumbling was doing. And then from there, extraordinary space emerged, because he said, wow, my grumbling also was doing that and that. And then we went to another kind of space after admitting. So we did not stay analyzing the thing. We admitted, and then the space flipped. And we started to talk and having a conversation, and not so much a monologue.
And what you're saying is like the level of conscious anger that's needed to not enter the gray zone. And then you were also referring of a possibility of getting out of the gray zone by admitting.
Yes, because I think that the gray zone in my research is when I'm sleepy, when I'm in a sleepiness of letting the things happen as usual. This phase that I like it. You said, here we go again.
Yeah.
And
as usual.
Yeah.
And the sleepiness is then the play. Sorry, Patricia, what were you saying?
I think it's often a victim place. Like it's what you said, Gabriela, about asking directly. If I pick up on a victim place with Renee's tone or her voice, I really wish she would help me with, I don't know, I can't exactly bring it out right now, but it makes a big difference. If there's, I think there was something that happened this morning, and I said, could you say that again?
I think it was my hidden, actually, I don't know if it's the victim. I think it was my persecutor, but I'm hiding it because I'm wanting to blame you, but I'm not going to let you know that I'm blaming you.
And I
just feel sorry for myself instead.
Well, sorry, and I think I said to you, can you put some more conscious anger or put some more anger into your voice, and then you actually let me know. And it changed things.
It did.
Yeah, the anger is necessary to like, as you were saying, Gabriela, the sleepiness, if there's not enough conscious anger, then the gremlin, like, you're sleepy and the gremlin takes over. It's very easy. And then also, if the gremlin took over and you are in the gray zone, then it needs a certain level of conscious anger also to create a gap and to slide through that gap into something different, to get out of it, because it takes only one. And often in the hypnosis, I find myself waiting for Jacopo to do something to get us out of it. And I think this happens, that we both waiting for each other, for the other to get out of it or to do something. So then I do need to have like enough conscious anger to create a gap and like slide through it, and then find that moment to do something different. And
when you say that, it just came to me the memory when I was a child with my brother. We were fighting about something, and then it was that idea that I will just say sorry if you say sorry first.
Yeah.
And this is such a funny and at the same time weird way of the gremlin to giving it away the responsibility of creating the shift.
Yeah.
Because like I do that and then you do that, and it's like a eternal ping pong that doesn't shift. And one thing that I'm curious to research with you all is, what are the ways that I wait, that I expect, like what are the expectations that exist in the gray zone specifically?
When you're already in the gray zone, you mean?
Yes. The expectations that one that you said is that one that I expect that another person will do something.
Yeah.
Will ask something or will say something. We have the initiative. Because I think that expectations keeps the gray zone happening.
Yeah, I really relate to that waiting and the expectation that Renee will do something, and I'll just stay staunch with my gremlin feeding on the wall that I brought down for a little bit longer. So yeah, I relate to that.
And I'm not sure if there's the expectation, and at the same time, because I noticed earlier I was hooked and I wanted Jacopo to get me out of it. So I'm expecting him to do something to shift the space. But at the same time, almost whatever he'll bring me is not good enough. It's like, then it's like, he's asking this question, like, come on, you could do better, or yeah. So there's also like a refusing the offers. So I want him to shift, but I also don't want it. There's like something happening internally then.
So there's, in the gray zone, as we said, there's plenty of expectations. There's many expectations. And yes, you can work with each one of these expectations. And these expectations are also very much rooted in a certain story, in a certain core story. And if this core story is, let's say, the soil, the ground where you're standing on, basically, doesn't matter how many expectation removal by dismantling resentment processes you do, the story is alive, and you'll find other expectations to support the story. And like my question is, how can you just shift it? How can you just, in some way, also refocus to something to a different story? Because if I have this story of like my life is better on my own, then I can find any sort of evidence, I can create any sort of expectation towards Rita. I can be very creative. Because this is like one, it's a core story. It's part of my box. And I don't know what I'm going with this, but it's like, okay, then I can shift it. Then I can change it. I can change my mind about it. I can choose a different story of who Rita is in that moment, when she's not the person who is making my life difficult, for example. Who is she then? How can I find evidences to support that story if I want to? And then the moment I refocus and I choose something else, something different story that gives me more power, or that I just want more, then all the expectation in some way drop. They don't have any soil to take root on. And so this is the question that I had before, is like, who does the other person become to you when you are in the gray zone? And how can you change that?
I noticed that you are opening that question to explore now. Is that your proposal?
Yes.
Okay. I think he becomes the person to be blamed of for me. And
For what?
for what I want not being happening. The person to be blamed of that the intimacy is not happening, that the conversation that is nourishing is not happening. So he becomes like the persecutor. I become the victim, and I put him as a persecutor that is not cooperating or collaborating, that is hooked, that is lifeless, that is not taking the offers or not making offers, and it's his fault. So when I say the person should be blamed of that, what I want is not working, that is not happening.
So right now you're saying like all the things that he is not doing, or the things that he is not.
Yes.
So if he's not creating intimacy, like what is he doing then? Who is it?
The persecutor, the person that is Mm. Yeah, this is the first thing that comes. The person that is not, is the not again. Mm.
Like he's the person who doesn't give you what you want and doesn't give you what you need, and he gives you what you don't want and what you don't need, so you can blame him for that. Then you can persecute him for that. But he's a person who doesn't meet your needs.
I guess what I want to
So-
go is like you're giving him a certain label.
Mm.
You're like putting him in a sort of identity, and this is what I'm curious of. Is like, what is that identity?
For example, like just researching now, like in the gray zone, I turn Jacopo into lazy, useless, irresponsible.
Mm. Okay, so you're asking what is the identity I label him with?
Yeah.
Yes.
So like there are all these
Mm.
things Jacopo is doing, he's not meeting my expectation, and therefore, like I have this thing usually that he's selfish and he's useless.
And you can say like he's a selfish, useless, lazy man, and that's who I become in that moment
Okay.
when we are in the gray zone. That's who I am for her, for Rita.
Maybe
Okay,
a
it's
little
more
bit.
clear now. I think yes, I'll try one more time then. Is he becomes he becomes a logical code, rational, stupid man
Mhm.
that has no inspiration and life.
And it sounds like he also become like boring also.
Yes, 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 like boring, without aliveness, soulless, ghost.
Mm.
Yes.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, this is really important. I had a little example this morning when often we will make each other a cup of coffee. You know, it's my turn, it's your turn. Anyway, Renee made herself a cup of coffee this morning, and without seeing if I wanted one. And so she became a withholding, uncaring, unkind, not kind, someone neglecting me person. Yeah.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
and you become, when we're not thinking about dinner, you become like a irresponsible, self-centered, entitled person
Mm,
who I have to look
Entitled.
after.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is then what you're hypnotized, and this is like so juicy for the gremlin, as I was saying, to hold on to this bone. Like a dog, you're trying to get the bone in it that doesn't want to let go. And as Gabriela said, this is where you need a certain level of conscious anger to be able to create a gap, and then let the gremlin feed on another bone. And I brought this question earlier, and we ended up going surfing another wave. It's like, what other bones can your gremlin chew on to create intimacy and to snap yourself out of this hypnosis? And I mentioned like going non-linear, which is one of Jacopo's favorites, as I said. This is something where the gremlin can have a lot of fun doing something completely non-linear.
Like singing,
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
singing.
singing.
No, I want to add something to just what you shared also about who the other person becomes. And what I'm noticing is like, okay, the actual, the more precise and short you name the other person, like you label the other person. So now you said a lot of things, like he becomes the lazy, useless man. So this lazy, useless man will have a certain, like, it can even be more precise and short. So that in some way you like, the shorter it is, the more you can remember that when you then enter in the gray zone. It's like, oh yeah, this is what I'm doing now. I'm seeing this person in front of me as the the problematic, I don't know, the one who is making my life difficult. So I don't have it yet, but it is something that they came up to me when you were sharing. It's like, okay, then the shorter you have it, the more you can take that, and then you're more conscious of what you're doing when you are in it. And it's like, how is it like to be, how is it like to be with a lazy, useless man for you? How does it feel like? How is it like that the man you are choosing to be with, or the woman you're choosing to be with, you're making him or her into this person? And how come? And then the moment then you bring that up, then you can choose something different. And this is how you shift focus. And you can create a whole different identity for this person in front of you. And as you know, you can find evidences for any story. And yes, and as Rita was saying about being non-linear and not using a Gremlin, it is a way of being unreasonable. It is completely unreasonable. For the part of you who wants to hold on to be right, to hold on to all the expectation, the yumminess, it is completely unreasonable. It means dropping all of that, dropping the whole thing.
Yeah,
Something
one
about-
thing that, okay, I go. We just asked Rita what else the gremlin can do, and with what you said now, Jacopo, it just came another job that I can give to my gremlin is to shift identity, is to how does because my gremlin is projecting that identity into him. Not necessarily that he is boring, but I am creating the picture. I'm judging him as boring.
Yeah.
And I can sense how my gremlin would have fun to shift identity in that projection. And then I'm thinking how would be in the next culture, all right? And say like, hello wizard, what's been happening today in your office? And like I can feel that my gremlin will love to keep playing the judgment into something else, because the wizard is also a judgment. It's a story that I'm gluing on him. And the purpose of the story that I glue was boring is to create a gray zone where I'm blaming him.
Mm-hmm.
And when I invoke something else, I'm switching is I think how I can practically shift the focus, shift the attention. So yeah, this is something else that I can do, that I can give to my gremlin, to glue another stories, because she will keep creating stories.
And something I found is also that often people use the strategy to support the other getting unhooked. Like the strategy that would work for me to get unhooked, I will use on Jacopo.
Mhm.
And
For instance,
what did you say?
can you give us an example? What
For
strategy would
example, I know, for example, for Jacopo, non-linearity and like works really well. So then he uses non-linearity with me when I am hooked, and it doesn't work so well for me. And while I would want to be met more with being listened to, or like being curious about how I am, and then I use that on Jacopo, because that's how I think it works, because it works like that on me. And it doesn't work so well for Jacopo often. So also when you are not in the gray zone, you can also negotiate and be curious about each other, like, and really experiment, like what works for you when you're in this state, what works for you, and then experimenting, so that you can also negotiate and know what works for each other, so that you can be on each other's team. And then for me, it has been like, for Jacopo, non-linearity and playfulness works. And for my box, this is something like, my box doesn't like to go there. And I got like, oh, what am I gonna do? And then it's like, also for me to be on his team, like it also requires that I get out of my comfort zone in go non-linear and do something crazy to be on his side. And then I also have the opportunity to expand and to grow myself and do something that's extremely uncomfortable for me.
Yeah, thank you.
I was just thinking before that once you're in the gray zone, the gray is a bit like glue. It's really sticky, and once you're in there, it is quite hard to get out. And one of the jobs I could give my gremlin is to give my gremlin like a spray can of fluoro paint. And I could imagine, like, instead of painting, the grayness onto Patricia and making her into, it's kind of like pig making, isn't it? Making her into a pig, an entitled, selfish pig. I could get the orange Dayglow spray can and paint her into something else. And that might be a way to unstick the grey glue. There's a really bright color. And then how could I relate to her like that? And just
Yeah, I say go and try it out, and I look forward to hearing the results of the experiments. And it's a lot about experimenting, trying things out, and it works, great. It doesn't work, try something else.
yeah.
It is time.
Okay, Village, thank you for this exploration, this interesting conversation we had. And I look forward to meet you again in some other
Yeah.
space.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jacopo.
Thank
you,
you,
Rita.
Jacopo and Rita. It's great.
Thanks, Gabrielle.
Ciao, ciao.
Goodbye.
See you in another room and see you maybe tomorrow, Patricia and Renee.
Yes.
Thank you.